That's okay. I am awful at intros. I'm terrible. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm going to start by saying, is it a universal thing to absolutely feel incredibly awkward for the first minute that you record? I am not someone that typically records themselves very often, and I find it so difficult to get started, especially trying to do like a formal intro. So let me take a sip of my tea and we'll just get started. Good morning. I guess some people could be watching this in the evening or afternoon or whenever, but it's morning for me, so good morning. I'm Sarah. This is a brand new channel that I'm starting where I'm just going to talk about knitting. Pretty basic. I really enjoy content like this, so I thought, why not? I'll start my own because I like to talk about knitting. So this is Oakwood Hollow Knits. I plan to do a podcast eventually. Hopefully in the next couple weeks I'll start, and I'll go into the background. I'll go into the background behind the name of the business and everything later. We won't get into that today. So just to start off, I apologize in advance if you can hear some weird grunting in the background. That's my newborn. So I have a almost 4-week-old, almost 4-week-old son who's asleep on the couch right now. So I don't actually know how long I'm gonna have to record this. So we're just gonna speed run it, see how far I get, but you might hear some weird grunting in the background because if you didn't know this, newborns make a lot of noise while they sleep. And I mean a lot. They sound like tiny dinosaurs. It's quite funny, but you'll hear it. And then if you hear a crackling, that's my fireplace. I don't have a proper setup yet with microphones and all that jazz, so you're just gonna hear all the sounds of my house. So let's just move on, get into it. Essentially today, I'm going to be talking about everything I've knit. Pretty much every finished product I have. It could be seen as like a everything I knit in 2025 video, and that's probably what I'm gonna call it. But in all reality, it's pretty much everything I've knit ever, with the exception of 2 hats. So you could also consider this just everything I've knit ever, pretty much. Wow. I highly recommend that you go grab yourself a nice warm drink because this is making my whole morning right now. Also, don't you just love my mug? I got it from this lady at a craft sale near us. No idea what her name is. I don't remember. It's probably stamped on here somewhere, but it's huge, first of all. And it has this little bird thumb like handle. I just had to show it off. It's my favorite thing in the world. Let's get into this because I might run out of time here. I started recording this before and then realized that I wasn't set up properly and I was kind of jumping all over the place. So I'll try and be a little bit more succinct this time. I wrote myself a little cheat sheet here that I can refer to so I can stop forgetting to mention what the yarn is that I used, because every project I listed last time I forgot. So starting off with a benchmark to compare the rest of my projects to. This is the first finished garment, first finished anything that I made ever. I made it right before my first son was born, like probably not even a month before he was born. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I've knit before, like I started knitting as a kid. I knit on and off as a teenager, but I never committed to it enough to actually like produce anything. So then when I went to make this was my first time following like a proper pattern. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. So this is a free pattern called the 5-Hour Baby Sweater, I think. And I'll put everything like right here somewhere. But it's a free pattern that I just Googled one day because I wanted to make something for my son. And I had no idea how to do it by myself. I also wanted it to be fast because I knew, since I was still relatively new to actually like knitting consistently, if I didn't have something quick, I wasn't gonna finish it. So 5-Hour Baby Sweater sounded perfect to me. I had no idea what a gauge swatch was, and I mean absolutely no idea. Like if you had even said the word, I would have right over my head. So this is probably not accurate to the size of the pattern, and I have no idea if I used the right yarn because I just used what I already had. But it worked out, and this ended up being, I'd say like in between a preemie and a newborn size. It's probably hard to see on the camera, but it is very small. It was my first time doing any sort of increase, so you can see it's kind of wonky. I also, because it was my first time reading a pattern, I don't really know if I read the instructions for each row properly. It wrote out each row and it said like row 1 knit, row 1 purl, but because it was like front back, because it's not knit in the round, I'm not sure if the purl bumps are actually supposed to look like this or not. But regardless, I think it's cute. I made this, here we go, I'm not going to forget the yarn. I made this using the One Merino by Wool and the Gang. You're going to see a pattern here. It's pretty much the only yarn I knew existed at the time when I was first starting. So my first handful of projects are made with that. And like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a good yarn. It's a bit pricey for what it is, in my opinion. But the colors are nice. Very limited selection of colors, but they're all cute and they all go well together. So I can't really complain. I've since stopped buying it just because mainly I prefer to work with a thinner yarn. This is a worsted weight. I prefer DK or lighter even. So that's the yarn. I made it in duck egg blue, I think. It is a circular yoke construction. So you just do increases like spaced out around in a circle. Because it's not in the round, it's worked back and forth, but still the same kind of construction. And then the sleeves are held like you have live stitches that break off here. And then for some unknown reason, I don't know, maybe I read the pattern wrong. Maybe the pattern didn't include that. But I didn't knit the sleeves in the round. Don't ask me why. I knit them flat and then seamed them together really terribly at the bottom. I clearly didn't know what a Kitchener stitch was because, like, can you truly see that? It's pretty terrible. The good things, I'm going to talk about the good things about each pattern first. So the good things about this sweater is I love the color. The buttonholes line up. Pretty impressed with myself on that one for my first project. I think my tension actually is quite good for my first like finished product. And this has not been blocked. I should say that as well. So the stitches haven't relaxed. I didn't know what blocking was back then, so this has not been blocked. But I think my tension was pretty good. And the sleeves are the same length. That's a plus. And it actually fit my kid, which that's a huge bonus. The bad things, obviously, the sleeves. It's a bit kind of wonky. You can see my increases, but overall it's really not that bad. I prefer a different construction nowadays, but that doesn't really talk about the quality of the sweater. That's just pattern preferences. So anyways, I'm not going to dwell on this one too long because it's not technically even included in what we're talking about today, but I wanted to give you a benchmark as to where I started from. So this is my first project ever, knit sometime in 2024. Moving on, this is, can you see that? This is the first project that I made in 2025. Let me try and do up some buttons while I talk here so you can see it a bit better. It is made with a pattern that I have no idea what the name is. Essentially the story there is my Nana is an avid knitter, always has been, and she gave me a bunch of knitting patterns that she wasn't using anymore. And so it was just from a book that she gave me. And then my toddler ended up ripping a bunch of pages out of it. So I don't have the book anymore because it's been completely destroyed and I don't remember what the name is, but this is it. If anybody recognizes it, let me know. It's just probably like early 2000s, maybe 1990s, from a little knitting magazine style pattern book. And I think this pattern might have even been on the cover. It's got these little pearl bump heart motifs. They wrap around the back as well and on the sleeves, and then the rest is patchwork color work. It's worked with like an intarsia technique. If you haven't guessed already, this is made with the same yarn. So this is also the One Merino by Wool and the Gang, and we've got the duck egg blue, the eucalyptus green, the blonde beige I think it's called, and then ivory white. I'm pretty sure the pattern book did call for a worsted weight yarn, but I still didn't know what a gauge swatch was when I made this, so it came out huge because I definitely don't think I met gauge. I don't remember what needles I knit this on. If I had to guess, it would be 5mm or up even, because it's very drapey, it's very loose. It might have even been a 6 for all I know, because worsted weight works okay on 5 usually. It's not as structured as I would have liked. This was supposed to be knit at a size like 1 to 2. It's probably closer to like a 3-4 toddler. Like my son is wearing 3T for the most part right now, and he still fits in this, like with room to spare. So it turned out huge. Construction, I think it's a drop shoulder. It's all seamed together though, so kind of changes things. It's not worked in the round. I knit every panel separately and then really poorly seamed it all together. And then the actual technique used is, as I said already, it's intarsia. That's how you get the color work patching. So you work with different balls of yarn. So for instance, the back panel, I knit all in one, but then I had one ball of yarn here and one ball of white yarn over here. That way I don't have to carry floats across the green, and then same thing further down. So this was worked with a lot of yarn at once. The good things I like about it, we'll start there so I don't beat myself up too much. I love the colors. I think the actual design of it is really cute. It looks adorable on my son. My husband likes it so much that he keeps saying that he wants one. I don't really have too many good things to say about it, honestly, because it's pretty poorly made. But it's my first piece of the year, so I'm gonna give myself grace on this one. Some things that I would change. I did not understand that it was typical to size down your needles when you're picking up stitches for button bands and necklines and cuffs and hems and everything. So these are very floppy. They don't have any structure to them. They don't like cinch in nicely. And then the button band, if you can see, isn't picked up properly. So there's like it lifts at the bottom hem here on both sides. And then it kind of like flares because I didn't size down my needle. I also just hate ribbing, personal preference, but I hate ribbing when the rib stitches are like so loose and gapey like that. I want it to be like, you know, if that makes sense. Otherwise, I just didn't really know how to weave in ends properly. If you can see that. Get my face out of the frame here so it focuses. So they kind of poke out the front. I could probably fix that. I could probably fix the button bands and everything too, but I just don't have the energy. I'd rather move on to other things. So that's project number 1 of the year. Definitely an upgrade. But these were almost knit a year apart. I had almost a full year of knitting in between making these 2 projects with no finished projects to show for it, because I essentially was working from free patterns that were really hard to follow, or pattern books that I had been given that were also really hard to follow. A lot of them also had errors. I didn't have the proper yarn for it. I didn't know how to gauge swatch, so nothing was working out. I kept trying something and then the size would be wrong, so I'd rip it back, and then I'd try something else, and you know, same thing over and over again. I wouldn't like the fabric or the size would be wrong. So this is an entire year of knitting in between. This is project number 2 of 2025. This is the Seaside set by Petite Knit. And I'm actually going to talk about project number 2 and project number 3 at the same time, because you guessed it, they're the same. I only made the sweater. We cloth diaper in our household, and knitted pants paired with cloth diapers, that's not really a friendly combo unless you have a lot of room in like the seam between the pants. Then it pulls and the bottom slides down, so even regular pants sometimes are kind of a struggle. I usually have to size up, so I was not about to knit knitted pants that weren't going to fit over my baby's diapers. So we just made the sweaters. I will say this was a wonderful pattern. This was my first time using a paid pattern. I saw it recommended from somebody that I followed on Instagram back on my old account. She had recommended this when she had her son, maybe, and said that it was super enjoyable to knit, and that just like the process of it beyond just the finished project was actually really enjoyable. And so that caught my attention, and I ended up buying this one as my first purchased pattern. And honestly, I'm really happy that I did, because I don't think I would be where I am knitting wise, skill wise, if I hadn't just bit the bullet and paid for something. I was being really cheap before. Some could say frugal if you're being nice, but I was being really cheap and I didn't want to pay for anything. I didn't even really want to pay for yarn. That's part of why I also struggled for the past year before 2025, is because I was trying to thrift yarn while having no idea about the differences in yarn weights and fiber content and all that. So it just I ended up buying just a bunch of junk and then getting rid of it. So it was kind of a waste, but this definitely helped me improve. So I made this one first. I guess I should give a tiny bit of background. I made these in March, right after my son's first birthday, and I had just found out that I was pregnant with our second son. I'm a nester, if you will. as soon as I know that we're having a kid, I like to try and prepare as many things as humanly possible. And knitting is a way that I feel like I can really do that without having to like rip my whole house apart, even though we kind of did that too. Sorry to my husband. But I nest through knitting and major renovations. So this was the first thing I made when I found out. And then as soon as I cast this one off, I immediately cast on this one. So any mistakes that I talk about in this one are duplicated over here, and then worse. If you haven't guessed it, both of these are made with the one Merino by Will and the Gang again. This one is the ivory white all over, and then the stripes are lilac purple, I think. And then this one here is the white with the duck egg blue, and then I forget what the navy's called, but I'll put it on the screen. But it's all the same. Some good things that I like about how I made these is my stitch definition is very even. My tension was great. Don't know if you can see that. I accidentally messed up my row counting when I was doing the button band. So this one has an extra button, but I actually like that better. So I kind of wish I had duplicated that on the second one as well. I think it just suits this sweater a little bit better. My raglan increases were good. Like I don't have any errors. I think my increases are pretty even. Like you can't really see the bumps or anything. Overall, not too bad. The bad things. To the eye, and probably in the camera, you can't really tell, but this is a very dense sweater. It's super stiff. It's not drapey at all. It literally has like barely any flex to it. And the reason for that is because this pattern calls for a fingering weight yarn. This is a worsted weight yarn. So again, going back to the fact that I had no idea what the differences between yarn weight were, I didn't realize there was that big of a difference. When I bought this pattern, I still didn't know what a gauge swatch was, and I just kind of went for it. I'm pretty sure I used the recommended needle size, which I think was 4mm. I knit 28 stitches and like maybe 4 rows, and then just kind of measured while it was still on my needles. And it gave me an estimate of, I think, 21 stitches, roughly. I ended up figuring out that I had to take out about 6 to 7 stitches for every 28 stitches, which is what the gauge was. So I pretty much just accidentally turned this into like a worsted weight pattern, which I don't recommend because it's very stiff. And because of that, both these sweaters are pretty much unusable. If they were for a bigger child, they'd be okay. But these are knit in newborn size. And so to try and put such a stiff, rigid sweater onto a newborn, it's just not it. It doesn't work. We don't use them. I will probably end up frogging them eventually just because I hate for them to sit in the drawer and not get used and just rot because they're cute and the yarn is half decent. So yeah, mistake number 1, using a worsted weight yarn on a fingering weight pattern. I've since learned my lesson. Mistake number 2, I didn't know how to do a stretchy bind off. It's not too bad on this pattern, just coincidentally, I think. But like the sleeves have no give whatsoever. The hem's not so bad because it's quite a baggy sweater, but trying to get tiny fingers and hands through this opening when I can't even get my own hand in to grab the baby's hand just doesn't work. And then mistake number 3 comes in on the second version that I made, where first of all, I didn't know how to properly join yarn when I had to switch to a new yarn ball. So you can see some puckering where like a stitch got sucked in because I pulled too tight. I probably just tied a knot on the back, to be honest. This one I changed the stripe motif myself, which honestly I think I did a half decent job, especially like crossing over the raglan increases with the individual stripes and then doing the collar in a different round, in a different color. That was pretty fun actually. I did have a lot of issue on this side, which luckily it's not right on the front, but I don't know if you can see that. On the inside there, the other side of the button band, for some reason, when I was trying to pick up that bar between stitches to do an increase, I could not figure out which one to pick up. I think it's because the color changes here and it was really throwing me off. So sometimes I picked it up properly, sometimes I didn't. I don't know if that's focusing, but it's very messy. Luckily though, you don't really notice it. I also played a very dangerous game of yarn chicken with this one, where I used the light blue, knit the entire one sleeve, bound off, and woven my ends, just to realize when I got to the end of the second sleeve that I didn't have enough, even though I knew I was really tempting it from the get-go and I should have just left that sleeve live. Like I should have just left it on a different pair of needles or scrap yarn or something so that I could have come back to it. But I ended up having to cut the bottom, rip it back, and then pick it back up with these stripes instead, just to make the yarn stretch to have enough. So that was really a pain. Definitely learned a lot doing that, but oh my god, it made me pull my hair out, so don't recommend. Another thing with this one is I either accidentally sized down my needles or just knit this one tighter because it's even denser than the first one. Like this one's even stiffer. It's also shorter because I was running out of yarn. I cut it a little bit shorter. So just the fit and the drape and the fabric, like the finished fabric of it, of both these really is just not ideal, which is a shame because they're really cute. Things start to look up from here, don't worry. I definitely start to see major improvements moving past those ones. But you also have to think, and I have to remind myself too, that these were some of my first like finished projects ever. That's only 4 things that I've ever finished at this point. Moving on, we have project number 4 of 2025. This is the Everyday Balaclava, I think. Also by Petite Knit. So at this point, I was completely sold. I was like, yep, paid knitting patterns are definitely worth it. And I went out and I made a yarn order for, I think 5 projects worth of yarn that I had in my head I was gonna make. I think the company that I found was having a sale. I had just discovered Drops yarn. That was game changing. So I made a big order, bought a bunch of patterns, and this was the first thing I made out of it. This is made with Drops Karisma. I have since learned that many people find this yarn really, really itchy. I personally have no issue with it, and I've made myself some things in it, and like, it's fine. It's definitely not soft, but if I'm wearing it, like it doesn't bother me. I guess maybe I'm not very sensitive, but my son, who this is made for, because it's definitely not gonna fit me, he won't even so much as put it on. So this is another flop that I'm gonna have to frog, but I'm still considering it a finished product because here it is right here. I just didn't weave in the ends and it's done. And I do intend to remake it. And I already have the yarn to remake it in a superwash so it's softer for his face, but I'm still counting it because this was definitely a unique construction for me. And I went from having 2 really terribly, I guess maybe even 3 or 4 really terribly made sweaters to having like an actual properly made finished product. This fit him perfectly. I made no mistakes. I actually think like picking up my stitches and everything was really clean. The like ribbed, I was gonna call it a neckline, but I guess it's more like a face shaping piece. I don't know. This ribbed edge along the face and whatnot, I am very happy with how that turned out. I think it looks really clean. And like I picked up stitches to do that. And at this point I had 0 experience. Yep. I'm just looking at my other patterns to confirm. I had 0 experience picking up stitches. And like, if you can see, I got that line along the front here. Perfect. So very happy with that. Also, I just think it's really cute. I do fully intend to remake this, hopefully before this winter's over because we're headed into January and where I live, I'm in rural Quebec over here, it gets really cold in like January, February, and my son really loves to be outside. So I want something to cover his neck so he doesn't get frostbite and whatnot. So I do hope to make this again before the winter's over and I already have the yarn for it. So really, this one's like a flop and a success in the same one. So when I remake it, I'll be really happy with it. And then I'll also have yarn that I enjoy to make myself something else once I frog it. Probably like mittens or something. I feel like it's a good mitten yarn. It's very grippy. Anyways, project number 5. This is the first thing that I ever made for myself. So as you can tell, up to this point, my only finished projects have been for my kids. Well, I went with that yarn order before knowing what I know now and ordered a sweater's worth of Drops Karisma in Petrol blue. There's a lot. So if you haven't already figured out by me holding it up, this is the Sophie hood by Petite Knit also. You're going to see a little bit of a trend there. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. The rest is Petite Knit. She's long. She's beautiful. She has a couple of mistakes, but overall, still pretty happy with it. I do wear it, and I made this with the Drops Karisma that I bought for my son and then realized that he wasn't going to wear. I like the color on myself, so that was a bonus. Knitting this was kind of not as easy as I thought it was going to be. I think the reason I picked this pattern is because I had heard so many people say, like, it's so beginner friendly, it's so easy to follow, so mindless, and I have since heard quite a few people agree with me on this one, but I really, really disagree. I actually found it very, not difficult in terms of construction, but difficult in terms of counting. So you increase from the bottom up while working an I-cord at the same time. The I-cord I find is no big deal, but the increases are worked just inside the I-cord line, obviously. And they're worked like every, I don't know, 8, 9 rows. I'm sure it depends on the size you're making, but every so many rows. And this is knit and garter stitch because it's worked back and forth makes it really easy, but it's really hard to count your rows in garter stitch. And so if you forget where your increase was, like unless you marked it with a pin or something, which I recommend doing, it gets really hard, especially if you're picking it up and putting it down. Like me, I've got kids, so you know, I knit for 5 minutes and then I put it down, and I don't have time to stop and take a note of what row I was on. Like if my kid is over there causing a ruckus, like I just drop what I'm doing and run. So yeah, in terms of simplicity, it was not simple. That said, I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out. Because I had such a hard time counting my rows, my ends are different lengths, if you can see. But when you're wearing it, you really can't tell because it's a scarf that's wrapped around your neck. This is more a criticism, maybe with my gauge, maybe with the pattern, I'm not sure. Maybe it's designed to be like this, but I thought the hood would be deeper. It really sits like right here on me, which maybe that's the point, but I find because it doesn't like fully sit onto my head with the weight like hanging over my forehead, it just wants to slip back constantly. I don't know, maybe that's a me problem. Maybe that's my head shape or hair or something, but that's a complaint I have with it. If I could do it again, and I might in the future, I would knit it and then continue the increases longer to make the hood wider at the end so that it sits further on your head. And then something I wish I could do again and might still in the future is my seaming at the back. Because it's garter stitch, I had a hard time lining it up properly. So you can really see where it's seamed together. And I think it's supposed to be pretty invisible. So I definitely didn't do that properly. But you live and you learn. Definitely could have been worse. I'm still happy with it. It's the very first thing I ever made for myself. And still to this day, the only thing I made for myself. We're changing that in 2026, but there she is, my Sophie hood. I had to be on trend for one of these things. Project number 6? Is that what we're on now? Wow. Project number 6, 2025, is the Anker's onesie. I love this thing. I think it's the cutest thing ever. I knit this, it's also Petite Knit, it's the Anker's onesie by Petite Knit. I knit this in Baby Merino by Drops. And this was my first time ever using a fingering weight yarn, and I love it. I love it. I am converted. Fingering weight is my favorite weight. So here's some pretty details. I got these wooden buttons in bulk, if you can't tell. I've been putting them on every project. I think they're so cute. I like nice, neutral, clean buttons. I'm not really a foul, flashy button person. But yeah, that's it. There's definitely some things I would change. It's my own fault. But I still think it's adorable. I will probably go back and actually change them because this was a process. It's knit back and forth obviously because it's knit like a cardigan, but just into a jumpsuit. So it's open all the way down. So it's only knit in the round for the legs and the sleeves. So knitting back and forth, back then I was an English knitter, first of all. So knitting back and forth, English style, means purl rows every other row, and everybody knows that that's kind of a pain. And then I think it has a 1x1 button band. Don't quote me on that. But this was a labor of love because working back and forth in fingering weight yarn took forever. And I actually started teaching myself to knit continental because of this project. Some things that I need to fix, and I do intend to, because I still have another ball of this yarn. I knit the sleeves too short. I think I was getting really tired of working on this and I just cut it off too early. They're way too short, especially for a newborn. You kind of like to be able to cover their hands. I don't know if people watching this know, but newborns have notoriously sharp fingernails. They're like dragon claws. So they're gonna scratch themselves all the time, and you. So it's kind of nice to have the option to pull it down over their arms and hands. And this does not give me that. Sorry. This does not give me that option at all. And then I also think the legs are a little bit too short. They did block out okay, like they lengthened, but I still should make them longer, I think. But the biggest thing, there's absolutely no stretch to any of the cuffs whatsoever. This is like standard cast off, and I cast off tight. So I have to go back and cut that, probably lengthen everything, and then do like an Italian bind off, which has since become my favorite because I didn't know what that was at this point. And so I can already not get my son's hands through the hole. I could barely do it on the day he was born because I brought this to the hospital. I knit this with the intention of having it be like a car safe winter layer because children and babies are not allowed to wear like puffy coats under their seatbelts in the car. And it's really difficult to find like thin car safe garments that are warm. Everything is polyester. Everything in this whole freaking world is made with polyester, and I hate polyester. It makes me sweat, makes my kids sweat, gives me rashes. Also, it's just made of plastic, so like I'm really not a fan. No hate to anybody who prefers to use like polyester or even acrylic yarns or anything, but it's really not for me. I don't like to buy it for my kids if I can help it. I don't even really like blends. The only thing that I can get behind is superwash because that's what all of this is. And that's mainly just for convenience because let me tell you, when I put him in this coming home from the hospital, he puked all the way home. Like baby puke, so it was fine. But babies are born with lots of mucus and he let it out. So this went right into the washing machine as soon as we walked in the door coming home from the hospital. So God bless superwash yarn. I do still love it though. I think I did such a good job other than the bind off. I'll probably make another one in the future too. It just, especially now that I can knit continental, it took so long at the time, but now I am much speedier. So probably do that again. She also, I think, has an Anker's sweater pattern and cardigan, but I think there's a whole set and maybe I'll make that instead. We'll see. Moving on, project 7 and 8. I'm going to talk about them at the same time because they're the same thing. So this is the Anker's bonnet, which you guessed it, I knit to match. Obviously contrasting color, but I wanted this to be a neutral that we could just throw on him whenever, whereas this was like more of a statement piece. So this is the newborn size, and this is it's the second size. I think it's rated for like 0 to 3, maybe it's 0 to 6 months. I can't remember, but it's the next size up. I have small babies, but they usually have notoriously big heads. So I wasn't sure, and I knit both right away and brought both to the hospital. And he ended up like just barely fitting into the newborn size. This one was still too big where it kind of like slid. If he turned his head, it slid over his face and covered his nose, so I didn't like that. So I did like squish him into the newborn one, but it was pretty tight. I think these are adorable. I think these are a great gift knit if you're looking for something really speedy. I knit the second one in like a day and a half. Like they're really fast. They are worked back and forth, so if you're not a fan of that, probably not the pattern for you. But At this point, I had learned to knit continental, so it really went quite fast. It is, I think, like 1x1 rib with an increase pattern in between these little stripe motifs. And then it's worked with this cute little like spiral decrease pattern at the back, which I think is just adorable. I love these, I do. My one complaint with them is that I think they're a little bit girly. I'm not really that type of person that's like, I have boys, I have to dress them like boys. But I guess to a certain extent I am. Like the first sweater I made has hearts on it. My son wears it, that doesn't bother me. But for some reason, I put my second son in these and he just kind of looked like, I don't know how to describe it, like a little, he looked like a little pilgrim or something. Like he was wearing a costume or maybe kind of like a Cabbage Patch doll. I don't know. It just kind of threw me off. So I haven't really been using them, which is a shame because they're adorable. But, oh, here we go. I'm forgetting the yarn again. This is also Baby Merino, Drops Baby Merino. This is the off-white color, which I love. That's my favorite color. So these don't really get used, which is kind of a shame. But I do recommend the pattern, especially if somebody that you know or you are having a baby girl. I think these are perfect for a baby girl. Maybe if I had knit them in a darker color, maybe it's the fact that they're white. They kind of look like those like pilgrim caps that girls wear, but I'm probably butchering what that's called. I'll put a picture of what I mean, like right here. So yeah, maybe I'll make them again in a different color. T. This is project, what are we on now? 8, 9. This is project number 9. This was supposed to be the second thing that I made for myself. I had this whole plan. I was going to knit the, I think it's the North Sea set by Petite Knit also for myself, hat, scarf, and mittens. And I was gonna do them in colors that complemented my Sophie scarf so that if it was really cold, I could wear the hat with the mitts and this scarf instead of the other scarf because it's like a thinner, more traditional, like long scarf, whereas this is like a hood. But when I made this, it came out too small. Probably a gauge problem, probably my fault, because I didn't gauge swatch. I thought I knew what I was doing now because this is also Drops Baby Merino and I had knit both of these in the same yarn. So I was like, oh, I don't need to gauge swatch. I'm sure it'll be fine. Yeah, not true, but it's fine. It all worked out for the best because it fits my son perfectly. So this is Drops Baby Merino held double. So it's decently warm and it fits him perfectly. He wears this like every single day. He's actually at the store right now with my husband and I had to put him in a different hat just so that I could have this for this video because that's how often he wears it. It's knit with like stockinette and ribbing. And then there's like a row or two of double knit, I think, down here to help it fold. So that's why it has like that crease. I also blocked it folded, so that helped too. I definitely really like this hat pattern. I did try it on myself. It's just a little too small. Like it technically fits my head. It might be more of a style preference rather than an actual size issue because it's very form-fitting. So if you like that, that's probably not a problem. But I wanted more of like a chunky beanie, and maybe that's just not what this pattern is designed to be. But it technically fits me. And I did intend originally to make it again for myself, but after trying it on and seeing how it fit my head, I think I will probably opt for one of her other hat patterns or somebody else's hat pattern even, just because I don't think I like this style on me. I wanted something that has a little bit of height to it. But great kids pattern, even though it's not a kids pattern. There's not really much else to say about this. Like there's no mistakes. I knit it really fast over Thanksgiving. The increases on the top are like this cute little X. Great pattern. I have not made the scarf or the mittens yet. I just cast on the scarf 4 days ago, maybe. I needed something easy for the car because right now all I have is sweaters and they're all getting really big, so they're hard to carry around. But moving on, this is when I really felt like I stepped up my game. The quality of these last few projects that I've shown, I'm happy with, but they all have little errors, whether it be sizing or bind offs, that make them just not like perfect to me. Whereas this one, to me, this one is perfect, except I knit it too short. But that's my own fault, and I have the yarn to fix it, and I intend to fix it. So I'm not really including that as an actual problem because I am going to fix it. But otherwise, this one's perfect. This is the Monday Sweater Junior, also by Petite Knit, if you didn't guess. This one's made with Drops Merino Extra Fine, so DK weight. We're moving on from the fingering weight. It is a raglan construction, and it's a little bit fancier, I'd say, than like your basic raglan, but it's still like staple sweater worthy, which is nice. And probably one of my favorite patterns for kids clothes. I'm definitely gonna make a bunch of these. I actually already have the yarn to make quite a few more in various sizes so that my kids can grow into them, just because they're so simple. It's like such a great staple piece to put underneath a pair of overalls or over top of a t-shirt when it's like chilly in the evenings. They fit nicely under coats. Just a great pattern. It is 3 stitches, I think, across on the raglan, and then it has a double folded neckline. The way kids clothing works is the neckline, I find, tends to be a little bit wider than you might prefer it to look, mainly because it has to get over their head, and like kids have unproportionately large heads compared to their body size. So the neckline kind of sits a little bit loose on him, and I have that problem with the next project as well. But I think I'm just gonna try and thread an elastic through to help cinch it. That way it still keeps it stretched. Some things I'm really happy about with this specific project is I did a stretchy cast on, not just bind off on this one. So the neckline, because again, like I have kids with notoriously big heads, so it needed to be able to fit like an adult size head pretty much, because he wears my hat, through a child size sweater. So I did a stretchy cast on. I think it's a tubular cast on. I'll try and put the video in the description below because it was really good. Very easy to follow. A little finicky to actually do once you get until you get the hang of it, but still recommend it. Don't mind me. Yeah, I definitely recommend, for any kids clothing really, doing a stretchy cast on if you can. And then even if you have to reinforce it later with an elastic to help hold its shape, like it's just so handy to have it fit over their head. Quite important. The sleeves on this are perfect. Like I might have messed up a few of the decreases, like they might be on the wrong row, but only by 1 or 2 rows, so you really can't tell. But lengthwise, they're fine. There's no major errors. They're the same length. The ribbing I'm very happy with. And you see the difference there? I'm really gonna show you. I'm gonna fully show you. 1, 2. That's an Italian bind off. My absolute favorite thing in the world. I'm sure there are other stretchy bind offs that exist out there. Maybe they're even stretchier, but I love this. I love the way it looks. I know some people don't, I do. It like continues the ribbing over the edge of the bind off, over the edge of the cuff. And I think it looks so good. And it's stretchy. So like my kids' hands actually fit my hands. No problem. With room to spare. So I did that all over this. Cuffs, hem, you name it. So it's just the best. The fit is perfect. I have no problem actually getting him into it. And if anybody out there has ever dressed a toddler, you know that it's not easy. It's like wrestling an alligator. So to be able to just stick my hand into the sleeve, grab his hand and pull the sleeve on really quick, that's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. Moving on again. We're reaching the end here. This is project number 11. And I'll talk about project number 12 at the same time because they match. So this is, I think, the cutest thing I've ever done, and I am going to continue to do it until my sons are old enough that they tell me to stop. I made them matching sweaters, and I just think it's the cutest thing ever. So don't mind, there's a couple little marks on this one. It needs to be washed. It's getting a lot of wear. I actually fixed my issue. This one I knit to the full length of the pattern. What I had done with this one that I forgot to mention, I had heard horror stories on the internet in various sources about the Drops Merino Extra Fine turning into like a dress when it's blocked, as in like it just grows exponentially. I saw, I think maybe an Instagram reel of a girl making the Ingrid sweater actually, and it just like turned into a dress. I saw that while I was making this one, and so I got nervous. And that's why I knit it too short, because I was really expecting it to grow a lot more and it didn't. So that's a good thing, but that's why. It's not because the pattern was written poorly, it's just because I was being overly cautious, and then I've since learned my lesson. So when I got to this one, I had already finished that one and blocked it, so I had learned my lesson. This one is long enough. Something I think I've learned so far with petite knit patterns is I need to knit them longer than she calls for. Maybe we just have like long torsos in my family, I don't know. I don't, but maybe my husband and my kids do, because I've made this for my husband. Yes, this is for my husband. No, this is for my oldest son. I made this for my newborn, my second son, and then I have the body finished for my husband's version, because I am actually making all three of them matching sweaters. And the one for my toddler and the one for my husband, both are coming out too short. So I had to extend the one for my husband. I blocked it fully. Like I put it on scrap yarn, blocked it fully. And I'll talk about this more in a future video, just to get a gauge on like where the length was sitting. And then I actually had to knit quite a few extra rows from what the pattern called for to make sure that it would be long enough. And I still am not confident. So before I bind off, I'm gonna block it and measure it on him again, just to make sure that I don't have to rip back the ribbing and add additional length, because I really want it to fit him. I want him to wear it. This one's not such a big deal. It's long enough, technically. It might just be personal preference, because it would last longer if it was a little bit longer, because kids grow so fast. But it technically fits him and he wears it a lot. Clearly, it needs to be, oh, my light died. Sorry, the lighting for the last little bit of this video is gonna be not as good, but that's okay. That's the Ingrid sweater by Petite Knit. This is the junior, size 3 to 4. I knit this one in the baby just last week. I think this one took me a week. So the toddler sweater took me a month. The baby sweater took me a week. By this point, I feel like I was very confident knitting continental. Like now it's second nature. I still can't do it without looking, but I just fly. So this one was knit pretty much entirely continental. I only switched back to English when I was doing these like X faux cables, mainly just to make sure that my tension was really good and that I had more control. I'm still having some issues whenever it comes to like a complicated stitch, like an increase or like a faux cable, for instance. I'm still having a little bit of an issue holding tension continental style. I think mainly because I wrap the yarn around my pinky and there's not really anything holding it. It's just kind of there and it just slides through my fingers. So anytime I need to actually like pinch the yarn to have more control, I am still struggling to find a way to do that with my left hand. My left hand, just for reference, is completely useless. I can't even cut with a knife with my left hand. Like it's completely useless. So learning continental has been a little bit of a challenge, but I definitely think I am there for everything except for really complicated stitches like that. And like, I don't really mind to switch back and forth because my tension is the same. I think that's maybe luck, but like I can switch back and forth even in something like ribbing and you really can't tell. My tension looks the same. And I know that because I knit the body of my husband's sweater like 95% English style and then only switched to continental when I picked it back up after blocking. And you can tell the difference right now because it's not blocked, but the tension's very close and I think it will block out. This one's the exact same bind offs, same pattern, just the baby one. So the little X motifs are smaller. I do find it funny. This second one, the smaller one, is knit in a size 0 to 3, or maybe 3 to 6. But still, it's made for like a very small baby. And they're like almost the same length. It's even more obvious when I actually like lay them down on a table. They're very similar in length. So I definitely think that some of her like children's patterns and adult patterns maybe run on the short side for what I prefer. So I'll just have to keep that in mind for the future. It's not hard at all to lengthen a pattern, like it's no big deal. But it's just something that I noticed. They're very similar in length, even though the toddler sweater is significantly larger everywhere else. Like the sleeves, for instance, and the neckline. Let me see if I can show you this. The neckline obviously is quite a bit larger, as it should be. But then the sleeves, that's where you really see it. Like the width in the sleeves. But for some reason the length is very similar. So anyways, this is when I really feel like I've hit my stride. I made both of these and I feel confident calling myself like more than just a beginner, you know? I feel at least like an intermediate knitter. I do have plans for this coming year to test out some of my own patterns, and I think the confidence that I have to say that I feel comfortable doing that comes from having made these, probably the last 3 sweaters. And then also the adult version that I'm working on. That one's really made me see like, okay, I can actually make wearable clothing and be happy with how it turns out. All that to say, I feel like I've really come a long way this year. I'm very happy with the garments that I finished. I had set a goal at the very beginning of the year back in like January to make like 1 piece per month. I knew it wasn't feasible because some pieces are bigger than others. You can't always finish 1 piece in the entire month, but I wanted to have 12 finished pieces by the end. So I could say that I technically knit 1 piece per month. They just carry over into other months sometimes. And I did that. I actually have 1 bonus piece. So technically I knit 13, but I donated it. So I don't have it here. I also just don't like it. I'm not counting it because I don't knit with acrylic anymore. I don't like how it turned out. We're just gonna forget about it. The pieces I have here, I'm very proud of. Let me hold up this is half my stack. I'm very happy with them. I feel like I've improved a lot this year, and I'm really, really, really obsessed with knitting. As of now, like the last probably 6 months, I've been knitting consistently pretty much every single day. I'm just flying through projects. I love it. I love it. I truly, truly love it. And that's why I'm starting this account. I want to talk about it. I want to share it with other people. I want to give other people tips and help other people if I can with things that I've learned, because God knows I've learned a lot now. I want to make my own patterns. I'll probably do the first one free. I have it already almost completely written. It's just going to be a children's pattern to start with. But because I've never released a pattern before, I'll probably release it for free, hopefully later this winter. But then after that, I hope to actually release patterns for real. I've also started a knitting Instagram that I'll put right here in case you want to follow. I post to that a little bit more frequently than I will on YouTube likely, just because I have 2 children. I don't have a lot of dedicated time to film very often. It's very rare that I get like a solid hour of quiet to film something like this. So I'm lucky right now that we actually got through this. All the patterns will be linked down below, all the yarn information, everything. I'll link my Ravelry as well. Most of the details from these projects is on there, and it's also on my Instagram. So if you have anything that I didn't cover that you want to know about, you can find it on there, or you can comment down below and I'll answer. Yeah, otherwise, tell me what you're working on. I'm curious. I'm always so curious what other people are working on. I want to know what's on your needles. I need inspiration for future projects, even though I have my queue lined up for God knows how long. I still want to know. So tell me what you're working on. I'm curious. If you made it this far, thank you. It means a lot to me. This is my first video, so thank you for listening to me ramble. Hopefully I didn't miss too much. Hopefully it made sense. I'm sure I'll get more comfortable in future videos and won't jump around so much, but I really appreciate if you made it this far. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, or maybe the day's already over for you. And in that case, I hope you have a great night, and I will see you all next time. Okay? Bye.